everybody. Welcome back for another CineFix Now Roundtable. This week, a thing in the news that happened that was distressing, right?
About that subway guy?
About that subway guy.
Yeah.
Was that this week?
That
It feels
was
like
like
much
a week
longer
ago.
ago.
Yeah,
Okay.
at least,
yeah. You know, what happened was, and this is some insidery Hollywood crap, but DreamWorks' deal with Disney is coming up, I believe, in 2017, like next year after, something like that.
Soon in contract land.
Soon-ish, yeah. As far as the lawyers are concerned, it's very soon. And DreamWorks is going to go back to Universal after their deal with Disney is up. So that's all well and good and everything, but the rumor that hit is that Universal is looking at potentially, now that Spielberg is back in the fold, rebooting Jaws and Back to the Future.
Wow.
Which is like, come on, man.
We just did things you didn't know on Back to the Future, and I know the person who does all the research for that show. And he or she was telling me that, I don't know the person's gender, was telling me that all of the filmmakers involved with that movie had done, several interviews years past talking about it, reflecting 15-year anniversary, 10-year anniversary, whatever it was. And they were like, yeah, this is one movie, like, I don't think there'll ever be a remake. There'll never be another one, can't be done.
Yeah.
And I kind of believed it. I was just like, until they do.
Yeah.
And I hate that my cynicism is possibly right here.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we're
Well,
remaking
how are you going
Ghostbusters.
to, replace Michael J.
It
Fox?
was such a
and Christopher
perfect
Lloyd.
movie.
Also,
So perfect.
Didn't Spielberg say, was it Spielberg who was going to remake Grease like at this time last year? Like the other unremakeable and has remained so for like 50 years movie?
Yeah.
But yeah,
I remember the director, though,
Such a great cast.
of Back to the
Zemeckis.
Future, Zemeckis. I thought he did an interview not too long ago saying, like, oh, that would be terrible. Like, they couldn't do
Right.
and, like,
Oh,
he would
sure.
do his best to stop that or try to
Yeah.
stop it if he could.
So
I
do you
feel like
go
at the end of the
back
day-
to 1985.
That's the thing, right?
Yeah.
But I don't even think I love Back to the Future as much as a lot of other people. I think they're good and entertaining.
I'm the
little
same
too
way.
family friendly for me. I like a
Yeah.
little more edge, a
A
little bit
little
more,
more tits and ass.
a little more high body count
Sure.
action, if you will.
Yeah.
Full frontal.
Yeah.
Full frontal
bush,
body count.
Yeah.
Full bush body count is what I like.
Though as a
Wait,
kid,
do I have to bleep that?
But just going back to my point, like, even though I don't hold those movies as dear to my heart, I feel like those are truly unremakeable.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean they won't do it.
They
but
are,
No.
they are very literally a product of their time. Like they sort of have to be set in the 80s as far as I'm concerned.
Well-
So that because the 50s have this just straight lacedness to them that really makes for a nice counterpoint to
but
To
then
the
it-
cocaine-fueled
Yeah.
80s.
Yeah.
But then it makes no sense because then his dad is like 90 years
Yeah,
old.
no, of course,
Well, no,
yeah.
look,
If
look,
you
look.
said it
I think
now,
at
you're
the
not
end of the
going back
day,
to the.
I think though at the end of the day, it's just a bunch of hot air coming from executives that are
let's
like,
hope so.
yeah, because I mean,
Because
I
what
would
are they gonna
argue.
do? They're gonna have Justin Bieber be Marty McFly. Like, what? You guys don't have iPads?
I would argue though that Jaws is a more sort of insurmountable remake than Back to the
one bothers
Future
me. I
actually
because
disagree.
Jaws had a lot of things that sort of accidentally happened that made it, like the shark not working and
Yes.
things like that.
Yeah.
That those are things that you can't really count on or replicate
Right,
The CGI
because
shark
they
doesn't
did.
work.
Yeah, you're gonna get Deep Blue Sea, which
Right.
Which was what
I
Jurassic
feel
World
like-
was.
I feel
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
Jaws would be less of, and I feel like this is blasphemy to even say this, but I feel like that would be less of a disaster if remade.
Yeah.
It has less potential for being completely up
Yeah.
compared to Back to the Future.
Yeah.
but it has more potential of being completely useless.
Yes.
Yeah,
Right.
Like, I feel like
I feel like a Jaws remake would be forgotten because it's just like, oh, that was a waste
Right.
of time. Whereas Back to the Future, would be offensively bad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, but what we wanted to talk about here, because clearly we don't feel good about about the potential of these franchises being rebooted. But so just in the interests of hope and in the interests of not crawling in
A
a
new
hole
hope?
and dying, let's talk about times when remakes and reboots actually worked.
Yeah.
Yes.
Good remakes, good reboots. What was going on with those? What made them good? All kinds of stuff. Let's look for silver linings here, guys.
Yeah.
Well, I think the main issue is I think the best remakes overall tend to be ones that are made from movies that weren't that great to begin with.
The Ocean's 11.
Like Ocean's 11. I think, a great example is probably the best remake that people don't think about is The Thing.
Yeah.
Jack Harper's The Thing, was a remake of a 50s movie, and, that it was okay, the original movie, but The Thing is, iconic iconic.
Yeah.
But at the same time, like no one was really judging it based on the 50s movie at the time. But when you try to do like something like when they try to remake Total Recall, it's like, how are you going to do that? Total Recall is iconic. Even if it's a little cheesy here and there, it's an iconic film.
Right.
I think there's the other factor of time. A lot of successful remakes, or moderately successful remakes anyway, are remakes of movies like from the 60s in the 90s or 2000s. And yeah, maybe the originals weren't that great to begin with, so nobody's super nostalgic for the original, like Thomas Crown Affair when that one came out.
Although that was a good movie when it came out too. I mean, that was Steve McQueen was in that. Like, Steve McQueen at the top of his game was in that movie. But then the remake was
I don't think it was at the top of anybody's mind when they were like, let's remake this. I'm 50. I remember that when I was 12. Sure, I'll see another one.
And nobody was like, you're ruining my childhood by remaking the Thomas Crown Affair.
The other thing is that Jaws and Back to the Future are huge, like, blockbusters. Jaws literally define that category. So even though it's probably, it's technically been as long,
arguably most iconic movies in the history of movies.
Yeah.
Jaws is something that people, like, it lives on, it came out at this time, people saw it again, and then it lived on like home video and DVD its entire existence. Like there was a good 20 years where you couldn't go see Thomas Crown Affair because there was no such thing as home video.
Right. If you didn't see it in the theaters, then it doesn't matter.
And so like these two movies are at this serious disadvantage of being still culturally relevant because of distribution.
And I think that's why reboots exist, is because remake is such a naughty word now that like reboot is like fine. It's like we're just like restarting the computer, no big deal.
That's such a hair-splitting
because
semantic.
It's there's not much of one because in a way, basically like with James Bond, for instance, they're like, well, he's the exact same character. We're going to have the same characters, but we're just taking it back to the beginning.
Casino Royale was a reboot.
It was a reboot,
That's a whole franchise. To say that you're rebooting Jaws is
You'd be rebooting Back to the Future, you'd be remaking Jaws. I think reboots are things that happen to franchises.
But are we? The thing about Jaws
yes, we are going to ignore these subsequent Jaws movies. Is that the question you're trying to get?
No, that's the thing is I feel like Jaws, iconic, of course.
I'm willing to look past Jaws 3D.
But that's the thing, like we can't take away the fact that there is a franchise attached to Jaws.
Okay, so I guess it technically would be a reboot.
If I can act like Crystal Skull never happened, I can act like the Jaws 2, 3, 4.
I literally had forgotten about that.
Filmmakers have done that. Like looking at Jurassic World, I mean that's technically a sequel with a soupçon of reboot elements.
Yeah.
Wow. Do you work on a cooking channel?
They completely ignored Jurassic Park 3, just like the rest of the world.
Right.
Like in terms of the mythology of the doesn't count, moving on. So they only refer to the events of the first two movies. So it's kind of interesting that I guess you can be a sequel and a reboot at the same time in that sense.
Just like Star Trek 2009, which is actually really a reboot because they put this different cast in the same roles, and a sequel because old Spock is there.
It's quite literally a reboot. They literally rebooted the universe in the movie.
They hit the...
They turned it off and turned it back on?
Nobody is happy. We're going negative again, really. It's just
just not about the things we're talking about.
Really wanted to try to stay away from doing a negative roundtable. But nobody likes the fact that we're just in a world full of reboots and remakes. So let's get back.
Sometimes.
It does work sometimes. So what are those times? We got Ocean's 11.
Well, I would say
Ocean's 11 and The Italian Job.
The Italian Job is another one that I wrote down.
Another
I'm sure we all kind of refreshed our memory by doing the same Googling of what are some good remakes?
Right.
Yeah.
But I think it's interesting because in doing that, I sort of realized how long reboots and remakes have been going on. Like it's not a current problem. I think it's just more pervasive now.
Yeah.
But I mean, going back to the thing, that's an old movie and that's a remake. Little Shop of Horrors is a remake. It's a great one.
Farther back than that, the Maltese Falcon is a remake. And they only waited.
Then they remade that.
They waited 10 years. 19 1931 was the original Maltese
Yeah.
Falcon, and there's some surprises too. Some movies that I genuinely love that I was completely unaware were remakes. True Lies.
Yeah.
True
True
Lies is a remake.
No.
Yes.
Yeah, no,
Say
that's
it ain't
the thing.
so.
Some obscure French movie.
It's a
that's-
French
That's a
spy
whole other
comedy.
category, though,
Yeah.
is when you adapt a foreign film for, the U.S.
Importing a
audience.
remake, yeah.
So you got Three Men and a Baby, you got True Lies, you've got all these movies, and I think that's where you get some real creative
The
work.
Departed.
Thank you,
That's what The
thank you,
Departed
by
was
the
what I was
way,
gonna
for
bring up.
including 3 Men and a Baby in your list of quality
I
remakes.
love Three Men.
Oh, I
and a
do too.
Baby.
I do have to give respect.
And I love Leonard Nimoy.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, we all love
Well,
Everyone
Nimoy.
knows.
I mean,
Yeah.
yeah, exactly.
Well, he directed that.
He directed 3 Men and a
Yeah.
Baby? Oh, I had no idea.
Yeah.
I thought you were just.
No.
I thought that you were just putting that in there just because you say that
Like-
frequently.
Look, everybody
Non
loves
sequitur, but I love Leonard Nimoy.
The Ring is a remake
Yes.
of a Korean
Yeah.
film that had only come
Ringu.
out 3 years before. Like, it was very close.
Was it Korean or Japanese?
Well, they
I
got.
thought it was Korean, but it might have been Japanese.
I don't know.
know.
And the window in which you can bring those movies over is super narrow. Like they did when Let the Right One In was remade.
Oh,
Let Me
that was
In
a
wasn't.
bomb.
It wasn't bad though.
It
was fine, but the problem was it did exactly the same thing that Let the Right One In did. I think if you look at a movie like True Grit,
Yes.
True Grit was tonally a very different movie than the original.
Yeah.
So that's a good way to sneak a good remake in.
Well, I think that's why the foreign films work so well. Is like you're very conscious that you're taking this French film or this Japanese film or this Korean film, and you're making it read American,
Yeah.
and that's
Right.
that's usually I would use that as a disparagement, like oh, you're making it all like
Yeah.
Americanized. But no, it gives you an opportunity to actually write and create a new thing.
Mm-hmm.
Well, here's a TV continuation, a revival that was great, Beavis and Butthead. They brought
Yeah.
Beavis
Yeah,
and
it was
Butthead back like
amazing.
3 years ago,
Yeah.
and it was as good as ever. I
Right.
think
Yeah.
it was, it was Mike Judge, and it was always
Yeah.
Mike Judge from the beginning.
Yeah.
So because they had the same creative team behind it, it was just like, man, like, why did that go away?
That's
Yeah.
that
So
is
bummed
super
it didn't
rare
do
well.
to
Yeah.
have the same creative team behind something and
Yeah.
come back and not have missed a
And for
beat.
them to
And
still
'cause-
have it,
yeah,
still got it.
Still got it.
Well, let me ask you
that
guys.
never happens.
Yeah,
What is Mad Max?
yeah.
Is it a reboot? Is it a remake? Is it a
sequel.
continuation?
Well, that
I
depends.
think
That
it's
depends
a
on whether or
sequel
not.
with a soupçon of.
All right,
of
we gotta work
like
something fancy.
adaptation, because it felt like they took the original Mad Max trilogy, its feel, and sort of adapted it to 21st century sort of.
It also
action
depends on
movie
whether or not you
standards.
buy into the fan theory that Max is a title that's been passed down, because there was the thing that a kid gave to Mel Gibson's character back in the day is in Tom Hardy's car.
Oh, that's interesting.
yeah.
I never heard that.
I saw that very briefly. I didn't investigate it or anything, but I think George Miller has been like, no, guys, I just made another movie.
Yeah.
But
I think a lot of this comes down to just the filmmaker you pick too. Like for instance, I think obviously you know Christopher Nolan. There's a reason Batman Begins is amazing, and
Christopher
a
who?
big part of that is because of Christopher Nolan. I would say the same thing goes with The Fly. The reason The Fly is a work of genius is David Cronenberg is a
Yeah.
genius, and he took a really cheesy idea from the 50s and added a little pseudoscience and made this amazing, creepy sci-fi
because the
movie.
And
original
don't forget Goldblum.
then
And Goldblum. Well, and he's
That's
a
the
secret
secret
ingredient,
ingredient.
isn't it? Yeah. He was the rock of the 80s, really.
A Susan
Yeah.
of Goldblum.
A Susan Goldblum. Because the original Fly was back in the days of the Mummy movies, and I mean it was just a regular old Universal monster movie.
It was a dude with a
It was
big
a
fly
dude
head.
with a plastic fly head.
Yeah.
And then it's like, no, let's think about what makes that interesting.
Yeah.
And then like actually saying something new with it, which is where remakes like Total Recall and Robocop the most recent Robocop
Yes.
attempted to update itself and make itself more relevant. It's just kind of, but
I liked it.
that's negative.
I actually really liked
Did
it.
you?
Yeah, because it was so different. It didn't
I-
infringe upon the original one bit. They were such different
the
movies.
first 10 minutes with Samuel L. Jackson doing his thing, I was
No.
like, I'm gonna love this. This is great. And then it just kind of went up. But anyway.
If I thought that the Back to the Future could let itself go enough to like really be an adaptation reboot of Back to the Future, I would be a lot more hopeful about it. Like
Yeah.
I feel like if it weren't about a studio, if it were like a filmmaker, you give them them this thing and say, make it of the 21st century, make it not maybe they don't travel back to the 80s, maybe they don't travel back to the 50s. Just figure out a way
Maybe
that
they don't time travel at all.
zany time travel is a thing.
That would be a strong choice, wouldn't it? Well, let me ask you guys though. If they did a thing where it was Marty McFly's son who had to go back in the future to deal with the stuff that he did in the first movie, then they go back in the past again, would you like it more and have Michael J.
that
Fox?
Seems
Or would that
like
be
a
too much?
pretty obvious option for
Yeah.
them to go
That
down.
feels like exactly the
Which
sort of thing a
makes me
studio
think that's the one
insists
they're
that you
gonna
do,
do it.
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
It's like, no, make sure that we know that it's still in the same franchise, just like
Yeah.
Jurassic World. Like, just in case you forgot, you guys, this is a Jurassic Park
Yeah.
movie.
Put a T-shirt on Jake Johnson. Okay, done.
Yeah. Just going back to the question of Mad Max, though, I would consider personally Mad Max. I would consider a sequel because originally they didn't want Tom Hardy. It was supposed to be Mel Gibson. Like that's how long that movie was in the works.
Yeah.
It was
For like
just
12
supposed to
years.
be another Mad Max, and then Mel Gibson said and did some things.
Yeah.
And recast. So I think in that sense, it's just Mad Max 4.
Yeah, I don't mind that at all. I don't
Yeah.
think that because Mad Max, the story went off the rails so thoroughly for me.
Right.
Like Beyond Thunderdome,
Yeah, it's
You know,
more
so
like
it's
this
like-
is just another chapter in that graphic novel.
I feel like it's a reboot in that sense though,
Hmm.
because it's like, look, we did some stuff back then, but this is the new version of Mad Max. This is because the world
Yeah.
was it was a very similar world,
Mm-hmm.
but it was a little different. It
I think
felt more grounded and more possible in a lot of
Mm-hmm.
ways. Than the original Mad Max, partially because of the effects that we have now and the filmmaking, the technology we have to actually make the movies, and
Yeah.
the
I do
costumes
remember
weren't all
feeling
like
like that
spare
world could
tires, you know.
exist.
Yeah, but the world felt like it very much could exist.
Yeah.
The world of the original Mad Maxes, I didn't really buy. It was interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Because it wasn't post-apocalyptic enough. There was like grass everywhere, and like
Yeah.
train
People
stations.
still had
Right.
farms
Comes down
and
to
ice
budget.
cream stands
Yeah,
and stuff.
But then,
But I feel like the new one was a sequel to Road Warrior, if anything, because it felt
It was
so
in the
much
vein of Road
like
Warrior.
Road Warrior. Because I feel like it wasn't at all like Thunderdome, which was the more Americanized
Here's a
PG-13
question.
Yeah.
version.
would you or you know the phrase that gets thrown around a little bit, a spiritual sequel?
Oh,
Was it a
gosh.
spiritual sequel to Road Warrior? Because I don't think it was a direct
I've
sequel.
never
No.
heard that.
You've never heard
No.
that?
Gross.
No.
Hate it.
What about this though? Because it doesn't say, they haven't talked about rebooting them as movies. What about rebooting them as TV shows? The
Right.
successful TV shows that are based on movies, are they more common? Because I feel
I
like
mean, I can't
Yeah.
even think of one right now, but I was
Nikita.
oddly
Fargo.
enough.
Nikita.
Oh,
Nikita
yeah.
was
True.
awesome.
I mean,
that was a
huge
TV.
show.
look at Fargo.
That was
Buffy.
the second one.
Buffy was huge.
Yeah.
Fargo,
Huge,
very
yeah.
recently.
And
Parenthood.
Buffy was different because Buffy was a version Joss Whedon wanted to make
Yeah,
because
that-
he didn't get to make the version he wanted
Speaking
in
of
the
making,
movie.
basing something on a not terribly good movie,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
Yeah.
that's
but
yeah,
I mean, like,
interestingly enough, I was thinking about how About a Boy was a TV show for a while.
yeah.
Wasn't MASH like
MASH was
the
amazing.
movie
Yes,
first?
yes.
And that's like one of the
That
biggest
was
TV
huge.
shows ever.
Yeah.
And it was an Academy Award-winning movie too.
Yeah.
Same thing with Fargo. Fargo
Yeah.
won Academy Awards, and it turned into a great show.
I'm the only person I know that
You
doesn't
didn't
like it.
Yeah, I thought it was great.
I'm actually really excited
I
about
thought it was great.
I still watched it till the end. It was still
But
interesting enough.
here's the thing about Fargo though, is it's a completely new cast of characters.
Yeah.
They're doing anthology style, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
but the first series was based on burying the money that
Right, right.
Steve Buscemi buried or whatever. So it's like it was tied to the movie, but just in that one little
Yeah.
bit.
They're doing that with the TV show Limitless on
Yeah.
CBS. It's literally a sequel to the movie, and Bradley Cooper is in the pilot. I've seen the pilot. He's
he's
totally
in
in
it?
the
Yeah.
pilot. Yeah,
Wow.
he's in like the pilot, and he's part of the story.
He's like
And
the only thing you see in the commercials for it, and it's
Yeah.
like,
He's
probably
dude,
in
you're in there
less
for
than
like
5
3.5
minutes.
Oh
minutes.
yeah, he's in there very short, but they set up this really interesting way to have him in it, where he's going to play a part in the entire show, but he doesn't have to be there all the time.
Well, he's producing the show too.
Yeah,
so
he
he's
is.
gonna pop in like if the ratings dip. It's like, all right, write me into the next
Call up
episode.
Coops.
It's actually surprisingly good too. The
Is it?
pilot's
Really?
surprisingly good. Now I loved Limitless. I thought it was a cool movie, so I'm already sort of on board.
I
But
don't even remember what I thought of it.
TV shows that are better than the movies that they're based on. The only one that comes to mind is Friday Night Lights.
Didn't watch either.
Friday Night Lights was a great TV show, and it might be just because we had so much more of it.
Nikita's great. The original movie's great. I'm not talking about La Femme Nikita, the TV show. I'm talking about Nikita that came out with
Right,
Becky Q
just
a
a
few
couple
years
years
ago.
ago, yeah.
Yeah, that was excellent
'Cause
and
La
a
Femme-
weirdly good show for the CW before the CW became decent.
The La Femme Nikita series from several years ago was in like the same like It was like on USA every day after school
Yeah.
with Highlander and Renegade.
There you go. Highlander. That was a
Highlander's
weird
a
one.
TV show.
Yeah.
Well, didn't they
Yeah.
kind of and they merged? They actually merged the universes.
Yes.
Because there was the one with whatever his name was.
McLeod.
Yeah, he showed up with Christopher Lambert.
Yeah.
Trippy.
Yeah.
So I just thought of one that I can't believe I'm the one saying this, but Clone Wars, based on
Yeah.
the Star Wars prequels, is way better than the Star Wars prequels.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I understand that it's like animated and stuff, but they did a great job.
No, I
Jenny
got-
Tartakovsky, really.
They
I tip my
really-
hat, good sir.
I have a hard time imagining like Jaws as a TV show.
No.
The shark
No,
just
that would be the
keeps
worst.
coming
Do it
back,
every
you
week.
guys.
Although Psych did have a serial killer in Santa Barbara every week.
It did,
So-
yeah. Well, every finale was a
That
serial.
hotbed
Yeah.
of
Before
crime,
that was
Santa
just-
Barbara, California.
That's one of my favorite shows of all time. If Psych is on TV, I will watch it.
I love Psych.
Doesn't matter. One of my favorite
Love
shows
Psych.
of all time.
West Wing
No.
is kind of the TV version of The American President.
Yeah.
They literally have
No.
some of the same senators' names.
The West
Like,
Wing. The
it's
West
the
Wing
same Congress in
might
both.
be kind of a sequel because it's like, what if Martin Sheen just ran for president after he was the chief of staff?
Changed his name and
Yeah.
ran for president.
Did anyone ever see the Blade TV series?
No.
I never saw it either. I know it was starring a member from Onyx.
That's
really?
I think Sticky
Fredro
Fingers.
Starr?
No, I think it was Sticky Fingers. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it was Sticky
Well,
Fingers.
I think that's his real name, is Fredro Starr.
Oh.
Yeah, I
It's
think
not Sticky Fingers?
I don't think that's his
Damn.
Christian name, no.
But that's the thing about adapting a movie to a TV show. When they don't work, they go away completely, and you forget they existed.
Yeah.
Ferris Bueller's Day Off was a TV show.
What?
You remember that?
Really?
Yes.
No.
Yeah, and it went away completely.
Robocop was a TV show. There was a
Really?
RoboCop TV show for one season, and it bombed so bad everyone forgets it existed.
Wasn't there a
Weird
RoboCop
Science
Saturday
was a
morning
TV
cartoon?
show.
Weird Science was a TV
It was.
show.
That
You're
one
right.
was pretty good.
It wasn't bad.
That
Yeah.
one did
I
all
like
right.
that show.
Yeah. Okay, so what were we talking about?
Remakes.
Remakes and
and
reboots and revival.
Can I
when it
bring up
goes
one
well.
thing? I like when iconic movies are remakes and people don't know. Like, for instance, Fistful of Dollars.
Yes.
Remake of Yojimbo.
Yeah.
Most people don't know
Yeah.
that, and
Yeah.
it's one of the most iconic, movies.
Kurosawa sort of famously said he wrote Sergio Leone a note after he saw. Have you heard this? After
No.
he saw Fistful of Dollars, and he said, "God, I'm going to ruin it." But everybody go look it up to get the exact version of it. But it was something like, "I really enjoyed your movie. I liked it better when it was mine." It was something along those lines.
I don't know if you know this.
It's like this is my movie, right?
Yeah.
So it wasn't like a remake with permission so
Wow.
much as it was they just went and did it.
Balls on that guy.
I know, right?
Apparently, there was a club in like the 70s of sci-fi writers who were all like who made a club based on the people that were not going to sue George Lucas. And I know Frank Herbert was one of these people that was apparently in this group because everything from Star Wars is taken from an iconic sci-fi.
We've
book.
all decided we're not going to sue George
Yeah,
Lucas.
yeah. It was like they had
funny.
camaraderie in the fact that they weren't going to sue him, even though they theoretically probably could have.
Okay, so just to recap, we've got remake a bad one if you're going to remake anything at all.
Yeah.
Remake a
Oh,
foreign one.
I just thought of a couple remakes/reboots that totally worked. Anything Quentin Tarantino has ever done.
Nah.
That's
Burn.
true.
Yeah.
It's a backhanded compliment.
It's a big one because
Yeah.
he's never actually obviously remade anything. But
Right.
I know
Yeah,
what
But
you mean.
he's just-
he's really
Well,
great
he's
at stealing.
super
So
derivative.
heavily
Yeah.
influenced
He's
by
remade
things.
2 or 3 things at a time.
Yeah,
But he was
he's
smart.
remaking 3 things at any given moment.
But he was smart enough to not only steal from stuff that was old, but stuff that a lot of people didn't see.
Right.
Yeah.
So that he got it's
Yeah.
good.
So, remake an old one, remake a bad one,
Yes.
Preferably foreign.
remake a foreign one,
Yep.
remake a foreign bad one if possible.
Then you're in the.
Craftily steal and get away with it.
Crafted.
Mm-hmm.
That's sneaking. This is crafting.
Or make it a TV show,
Yeah.
or have a completely different take altogether. That's interesting and relevant.
Or all of the
feel
above.
too
Or
beholden.
some combination of all 7 of those things. I
If
just
you do
listed.
all 7, are you now making an original movie?
Probably. I feel like if you do all 7 of those, you've written a movie.
Yeah.
That's all you've done.
Don't do a goddamn prequel.
No.
I hate. I don't think any prequels ever work.
Yeah, stories start
Ever.
at the point they start
Yeah.
because that's where the story starts.
Nothing's more anticlimactic than knowing how it's going to end because it's the beginning of the
I
movie
guess
you already loved.
you could do that if the movie was just so bad. I feel like a really great reboot remake that you could do that hits like at least 4 of those 7 points is, you remember that movie Jumper a few years
it's the
ago?
worst.
That was like the most disappointing
the
film I
title.
may
It was the
have
worst.
It was Hayden
Hayden freaking
Christensen
Christensen, yeah.
as
And
a
he can
teleporter.
teleport.
Yeah.
And that's pretty much
That's
all
it.
that he
Wasn't
does.
Kristen Stewart like his sister at the end of it or something like that?
Possibly, but I remember he
It was
had a
Doug Lyman.
buddy who was like by far and away 1,000 times more interesting than Hayden Christensen was in this movie. He had actual motivation, which Hayden Christensen.
He was a whole character.
like
Sure.
he was a whole. I would probably watch a movie starring that guy.
Starring-
It was
Okay.
Billy Elliot, whatever his name is, who was in
Oh.
Fantastic Four. I can't remember his name right
Jamie
now, but
Bell?
yeah, Jamie Bell.
Jamie Bell.
Okay, so let's all go remake Jumper then.
Yeah.
Or
No,
I'm probably
tell-
just going to
tell
go
what's
watch
his
some
name?
Beavis and Butthead.
That's
Let's just watch Beavis and Butthead again.
Jumper could go a whole nother show on movies that they make where they already established that they're going to make sequels. That's what killed me about Jumper. The end, they're like, just wait for the sequel, guys. We're setting it up.
Yeah.
It's like
Pet peeve. Big
I'm
time.
the we're at odds.
Okay, just,
what are we gonna do
just
about
so
it?
I can point this out, we're wrapping up this roundtable by talking about how next time we're going to be mean about stuff again. So
know
let's
our-
get out of here before we make it even worse. Thank you guys for watching, and let us know in the comments below, what's your favorite remake of all time? How about that? Remake, reboot, or we talked a lot about TV shows that are based on movies, so talk about those as well. Let us know about all that stuff in the comments down below. Click like and subscribe, and stick around CineFix for all kinds of cool movie content, like a list show called Things You Didn't Know, written by an androgynous human that none of us have met.
But who loves Tasty Hoots?
Loves Tasty Hoots.